What's up, everyone? How are you? Welcome to episode 3. That guy there is Jamie Golliver. I'm Chad Anderson. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you've been a part of this first couple of episodes, Jamie, who has a tremendous background in his life in education, but he also is now looking at different things on the mortgage side and sharing his story, his journey, and we've just been kind of talking about some different things that come up and what he went through and what I've gone through and how we kind of help people. So that was last week, where we discussed some of that. And so this week I made sure it was okay with Jamie. We didn't want to completely throw him under the bus here as a welcome in. By the way, what blood type are you? And by the way, I know sometimes people think this, but Jamie can confirm that the blood type is actually not on the loan application. It may feel like it sometimes,
Yeah,
but it's
no,
not.
it is. No, that's a different. No, this is not the bloodsucker. That's something else. Yeah. If they ask you your blood type and your social, probably need to go somewhere else, I would say. Yeah, only one of those is needed, and it's not the blood type.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
yeah. So if you get asked your blood type and you reply with red, that's probably going to tell us a lot about how the conversation's going to go. Yeah. So
yeah.
a lot of ways to go with that one.
That's
All
right.
right.
Punt
Getting
team.
into
I'm calling
this.
in the punt team, Chad. We're on a punt on that one.
So let's get into it. I thought it would be cool kind of asking you some of the things. Even I don't know some of this stuff, as much as we've talked about it and your loan journey and everything. But you purchased a home and then
Yes.
you also refinanced a home.
Yep.
And
Sure did.
so, you've kind of been through both. Out of those two, I mean, I'm going to guess purchase was more stressful, but did one seem any different than the other per se? Like, did one of those, kind of catch you off guard more so than another one?
I think the initial loan to buy the home was the most
Yeah.
stressful because we had never done that. It was a big step, and like I mentioned in the last episode, 38 years old, looking to be a first time homeowner. So I think that was for me the more stressful. It didn't end up being a stressful situation once we got into it, but kind of like Chad, a lot of what people are afraid of is the unknown. So I
Yeah.
think the unknown part of that, never having done it before, is probably what made that a little more uh, nerve inducing, maybe a little more anxious going into it. But
Yep.
that was pretty much, but those feelings pretty much went away as soon as we got rolling into the process.
Yeah, it's different. And obviously, once you purchase and you've gone through it once and then refinancing, you at least have an idea of kind of what's going to take place and what's going to
Yeah.
go on. How old were you when you bought that home?
So I had just turned 38.
Oh, I
So
thought you were like 16 because you're only
no, well,
39
listen,
or
hopefully the camera doesn't add 10 years because then you're really getting on up in there. No, 38. So it was 2010. We just bought the house. I just turned 38. And, I think that was another thing too. I was feeling kind of bad that it took me that long to get to that point. And I think that was part of my nerves going into the process. But yeah, 38. And as I mentioned before, it's been such a great investment for us. Love this house. Um, it's been a big financial investment because it has grown in value.
Yep.
So just so glad that we did it. And all things take time, or certain things take longer than others. And I'm a big believer in that everything happens for a reason when it does. And to me, that was the perfect description of us buying, the house when we did at that stage in our lives.
That's something and part of why I wanted to ask because so many times people associate first time home buyers, first time home ownership with 23 years old, 25 years old, or you get to be 30 and you think, it's too late. I'm too far behind the 8 ball, or oh, this won't ever work for me, or time's passed me by, whatever. That's just cool, to be honest. Like 38 years old, you buy the house, you get a good deal on it,
Yeah.
and you timed it well with the market and whatnot. And now here you are, what is it, 14 years later now? And
Yeah, 14 year, be 14 years this September. So
yeah,
I remember that. That's a big date. I mean, that was a monumental, deal for us, and it still is. Yeah, 14 years this coming September.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So in the process, what would you say was the most let's start with the scariest. What was the
Yeah.
scariest part of the purchase process on, whether it was the real estate side, the mortgage side, or the scariest for each side of it?
Yeah, I think, from the personal perspective, the fear was, even though I was, 38 at the time, am I ready for this, credit wise,
Mhm.
financial wise? And so that was a big part of the scary part of it. Even at the age of 38, is it now the time to move on it? So I had some apprehension there, but after talking with you and getting into the process, and as we mentioned in the previous episodes, asking all of my questions and you answering all of my questions, uh, those fears really kind of subsided. But that was my scariest part, not knowing what we would qualify for. I told the story where Diana's like, "Hey, they got a $40,000 house a few years earlier," and I'm like, "Oh, whoa, now so tone it down there, Diana, tone it down." Um, so that was my biggest fear, Chad. We'd been working hard to build up our credit. We'd gone through struggles. So my fear really was not knowing what we would qualify for, if we would qualify for anything, how long it would take if we did,
Right.
and just really needing to remind myself to be patient throughout the process. And then again, once we got our questions answered and you worked with us, and I felt better about everything, because that's really when it hit me that, man, I am not the only person. Diana and I are not the only couple in
Yeah.
this situation. As we go forward, we're looking to buy a home. And even though I was maybe a little bit later in the game than most, I'm glad we waited when we, until we did, because we were more ready for it at that time.
What's interesting too, and I say this, so people just can maybe relax a little bit. It's weird because the mortgage and the real estate world are such an unknown to a lot of people. It's something that a lot of times people are just scared to ask about. They're scared and they worry, or what maybe you kind of did is they put themselves in this situation where they go, I can't get a house. Nobody's going to give
Hmm.
me a loan. Nobody's going to let me get a loan to buy a 150, 200, 300, $400,000 house. Like nobody's going to let me have that. And it's really incredible. Like a lot of people that I talk to over and over, in the first time home buyer crowd, and even sometimes the second home buyer. And what I mean by that is sometimes people get their first home and they don't realize, okay, I'm ready to. It's my old man pill alarm. They they,
He
they
takes
don't.
two every night, folks. Two every
Yeah,
night at this
yeah.
time.
They what they don't realize, uh even people who are trying to buy up, sell their first home and then buy the next one, and maybe their family got larger or they just wanted something bigger, wanted something different, nicer, more custom, whatever the case may be. Even they are still apprehensive from time to time, because a lot of times you buy and you start with a starter home, and then it's okay, well, now we want to go to a bigger home. And this isn't everyone, but it does happen. And then there's the apprehension again because it's, oh, wow, we're going to buy a bigger house now. We're going to take on more debt, or we're
Hmm.
going to do this. I don't know. Nobody's going to do this for me. I talk to so many people who don't think they qualify, and they do. And some of them are
Yeah.
borderline, to be fair. And some of them are so qualified, I blow them away because I sit there and say, okay, you want your payment to be what? $2,000 a month. Fine. They're like, well, what do I qualify for? You could honestly buy a $700,000 house if you want. No, I don't want a 700. But it's funny because people don't even realize that. They just
Yeah.
are that shocked basically that is even an option. So I find that interesting a lot of times, that people are that caught off guard, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's, somebody who's not as well versed in the industry has assumptions, like you just said. Maybe they don't think they qualified, or like us. I felt like we might qualify, but again, I wasn't 100% sure that we would.
Yeah.
And so throughout the process, that really educated me on the various steps, that were involved. And man, what a great feeling it was to find out that you did qualify. And then from there, okay, well, here's what we could get, here's what it would cost. And the more we got into it, the better, we both felt about it. And Chad, you remember this house that we're in now was almost like a random thing. Diana had seen something about it on social media, and asked you about us coming by here and looking at it toward the end of a day where we'd looked at some other ones, and man, what do you know? You know, it was a perfect fit for us.
I
But I
think,
think,
I think
yeah,
back then it was called the Facebook, not Facebook.
it
That's
was
how
called. Yeah, I think it was a Facebook. We did.
I think MySpace was still a thing.
Yeah, MySpace. Chisel. You know, we take turns chiseling in the caves.
Yeah,
You know, different messages every other week.
hieroglyphics. Yeah,
Hieroglyphics. The Rosetta Stone. You know, that
for
kind of
sure.
changed things for sure for the better. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good one. But yeah, that was the thing. I think a lot of people who aren't in the industry, well, they just don't know, or if they are first time home buyers, they just don't know. If they've only rented, or or not even rented, maybe they've lived at home, with their parents, and they're just moving out and ready to buy a house. It's one of those things you don't know until you ask.
Yeah, it's such a good point.
And that is key, man. And that's where you were a big time help with us, because no matter what we ask or how many times we ask it, and everybody that knows me will probably vouch that I can be an overthinker at times. I know I
I've
asked
never
you the
been
same
accused of
question. See, now I'm thinking about what you just said. I know I asked you the same question multiple times, but every time you were cool with answering it. And I think that's the key, is making people not only feel good about being able to answer questions, but good about the answers that they get. You know.
Here's the thing about that is that unfortunately our society, our lower school systems for younger ages up to our, whatever you call them, middle schools, high schools, universities, colleges, grad schools, private schools, whatever. It's just incredible to me. I will say this probably every episode, but it boggles my mind of kind of what you just said. Like, how are you not teaching people the basic, here's kind of how you know if you qualify to buy a house? Like, literally, because I'll just tell everyone now, this is how simple it is. You can pull your own credit report at a website called, I think it's annualcreditreport.com, and it's a free credit report. You can get it once a year. It doesn't cost any money. It's free. It doesn't give you a score though. What it does is it tells you what accounts you have on your credit report. Here's how you figure out if you qualify. You take the monthly minimum payments, add them all up. We don't care what the balance is. Don't care if you owe $50,000 on something. If the payment is $100, we use $100. And you add up all the minimum payments. Then you take what you think or you want your new house payment to be. You divide that by your gross income. If it's under 50%, you're going to qualify. Most likely. We do have to find out, obviously, what the score is. You still have to have paid your bills. But if you're just wondering, like, do I qualify? That's a simple way of kind of getting a gauge. Now, there are variables to it. So don't start running out looking for houses and say, Chad said it was okay. Now, you got to do a little bit deeper than that. But if you want a starting point or just a rough estimate, like, that's it. Now, some programs allow you to go over 50%. So if you're borderline, you should check. If you're at 80%, well, we got some work to do. If you're at 20%, though, and probably buy whatever you want. So it always baffles me on things like what you said of, hey, this is some basic fundamental. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out if you qualify. But like you said, nobody seems to know or have any idea. They're kind of guessing and hoping more so than anything.
Yeah, and that personal economics piece is a huge need in our society. It really is. And Chad, people are going to be uncomfortable with things that they don't know, and so that's when you have people who are hesitant uh,
And
to
the
ask
other thing
questions.
is everybody's afraid of being told no.
Hmm.
And this one is one of those things where, like, maybe your friends, members of your family, people all own houses. And then you're afraid or have that fear of being told no. And then you're like, well, I'm not as good as them, or I'm not as cool as them, or they have something that I can't get because I don't qualify. And it's just such a big issue. And I have such conviction for it. Like, there's always that saying, American dream and buying the home and all that stuff. It's like, well, why don't we educate some people about the American dream? why don't we talk about it? And I'm not talking about dusty roads. I'm talking about home ownership. Like why don't we
if
why
you
don't we at
will.
least do that? Yeah. Anyway, well, let's wrap it up with the just kind of the final thought. What in the I don't know, one thing in the process. I know you said you've given some great answers of ask questions, don't automatically disqualify yourself, check and double check. What else about the process? One final thing that, you feel like people should know, or maybe that caught you by surprise, or maybe that scared you, or that you were surprised at how easy it was or simple it was, or not, anything else you want to add there?
So this is not necessarily anything that scared me, but you have to be patient with the process. It's not going to take forever, but it's also not going to be instantaneous. So for me, and Diana, we had gotten to that point. We qualified. We were getting close, and we went through all of the steps as you laid out for us. It's just being patient. Sometimes you can be so close to something you want it right then,
Yeah.
but just being patient, that added month or so while everything settles and everything clears is huge. With our home purchase. With the refinance portion, Chad, I did want to say this before we go. I was surprised at how seamless that was.
Yeah.
The refinance. I mean, it's a step-by-step process too with different variables, but I'm not saying it was easy, but it was a very seamless process for sure. As was for us, the purchasing our home initially.
Well, on refinances, that's what everybody needs to know. I get that question a lot. Refis are always cheaper than a purchase. Um, you know, depending on what the seller's paying for your closing costs, but it's closing costs are cheaper, and you don't have anybody paying for them in a refi. But those things are super simple, straightforward. Refinances are so easy, and they really are. Now, obviously, things can change, or you can have a bump here or there, but overall, they are significantly smoother and faster than a purchase transaction. So,
Yeah, and just like with the purchase, you just got to wait. A little patience there, but the process was great. And for both purchasing and refinance, I just learned a lot. And I think that was the other thing that surprised me the most: how much that I didn't know that I learned that then I could apply to other parts of our financial components of our life.
yeah.
It's really interesting how the home buying or the home refinancing components you can really apply to other parts of your life from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. That's 3 for us in the books. Check us out online at This Chad is Real over there. And that's all the social platforms. Like, subscribe, follow, hit the bell, DM, comment. I don't know if I missed anything else.
Yeah,
Share, maybe. That's a good
share
one.
it. And
Yeah.
Chad, I'm up in my social media game.
Look
Twitter.
out.
I
Look
went
out now.
fancy on the Twitter handle at Jamie Golliver.
Oh, man.
And it's
Well,
not even
leave,
Twitter. It's X.
yeah.
The artist formerly known as Twitter.
Leave no
X
confusion out there for
at,
anyone.
at Jamie
Which one
Golliver.
it is. I'm
The
glad.
MySpace has been deactivated though.
You and Tom, y'all
Yeah,
turned it off, huh?
that was tied into my AOL account, and we'll save that story for another time.
uh, you can also check us out. ChadwickAnderson.com is the website. Email is chad@chadwickanderson.com. And then down in, depending on which platform you're watching this on, YouTube or Facebook, that we have a link to a calendar. Again, if you don't want to talk about your stuff, which I understand why, like out in the comments section or through a direct message, you can set up a calendar on our schedule or on our calendar, set up a time meeting, 15 minutes, whatever. And we'll be glad to chat with you and just kind of go over your situation or answer any questions, brainstorm, put you on the right path, whatever it may be. So, all right, for Jamie Golliver, Chad Anderson, so long. Thanks for being with us. And we'll be back on here next week. Take care.
Take care, everybody.